Hey guys, in this video we're going over exercises for stronger and more flexible hips. Recently I've been getting quite a few questions asking how, after my 2 car accidents and my nerve damage and 3 herniated discs, I've managed to get so much flexibility and strength into my movement, and how am I doing these things. So I wanted to share with you some advanced hip mobility routines that you can try if you're already on the hip mobility route. If you haven't tried these before, I wouldn't recommend trying them in this quantity straight away, but I will be doing a beginner's routine as well. So if you're looking to get a really good Cossack squat, a really nice, strong and deep squat, or a deficit deadlift, or maybe you're trying to get a pancake or your middle split holds, these are all exercises that can help you get there. But maybe none of these are your actual goal. Maybe you just want to have healthy, strong hips for a lifetime so that you can continue playing with your kids and grandkids as you get older. There is a lot of scientific evidence showing that there are pathologies of the lower back, hips and knees that are connected to poor hip mobility. So all of these things, if you are eventually capable of doing them, is a great sign of keeping your lower legs, knees, hips and spine in check. So to begin with, we're going to go for the bent leg version. We're going to keep the hips as in line as possible, so you're trying to make sure you're always feeling the ground on both hips. And then we're going to bring the hands quite close to the ribs, so we've got control. You're going to push into the ground for support. And as you brace your core, you're also going to, of course, tuck your hips under and push your ribs down. But as you brace your core and you begin to move, your knee is going to come up to the side and you're going to try your hardest not to move the rest of your body. If, say, your hips are starting to move, simply reduce the range of motion that you're using and stick to where you have full control. Next, we're moving on to hip extension. First, you're going to squeeze the glutes and push the ribs down. From here, we're going to lift the leg as one, trying not to let the hips tilt. This range might be different for different people. Just work with what you've got for the moment, and with time and practice, this should get a little bit higher. And then the hardest version, we are going to bring the bent knee up to the side and then try to straighten the leg, squeezing the quads and glutes at the same time. This should be fairly difficult. So here, just like the other exercises, you're going to brace, but you're going to push your hands into the ground a little bit harder as you bring your knee to the side, and then brace even harder as you straighten the leg, because this is going to be the most challenging part. So with this warm-up, you should already be feeling your hip rotation muscles a fair amount. Seeing as rotation is the most important, we are going to start with that. You can simply sit on a chair or a box with a yoga block between your knees for stability, so you're going to squeeze the yoga block in place. And to begin with, we're just going to do some reps, so we're going to bring the heel up to the side. Sometimes just thinking about the little toes coming up also helps, and we're just going to do 5 to 10 reps per side to get things going. There's several ways you can do this. If you're first beginning, I'd probably just recommend doing reps first and then only a short isometric, maybe 2 to 3 seconds. But as time progresses, you can increase the rep range and increase the time you spend in an isometric at the end of each set. You can also do this the other way around, starting at your end range in internal rotation and bringing the foot in the way. Okay, so the next thing we're doing is hip abduction, PAILS and RAILS. You're going to be on one knee with your hands in front of you for support, and you're going to bring one leg out completely straightened, ideally in line with your hip. Here you just need to think about pushing your leg down like you're trying to get it through the ground. All the muscles on the inside of the thigh should start kicking in, and we're going to do that for a maximum contraction of 10 seconds. And then the next step is to then do another 10 seconds while imagining you're trying to get your leg up. You should be at that point now where you can't quite lift the leg up. If you can lift the leg up, then simply place another plate or a yoga block under your foot so you're at your end range, and then try to lift it up. And that should be quite difficult, and you should cramp up on the side of your hips. If you're new to something like this, simply go for 50% maximum effort, and if you have done something like this before, you can go ahead and try 100% effort. The next thing we're doing is we're going to do circles in this position. So imagine there's a tiny hula hoop you're trying to get your foot around, and you're just going to control that without letting the body shift off to the side. You might feel that when you lift the leg up and you start doing this, your core kicks in and maybe your weight starts pushing off to one side a little bit. Simply try to brace so that your hips aren't bobbing around too much, and you can play around with small circles and big circles and see where you have the most control. Okay, so the next exercise is we're doing hip abduction reps. You're going to want to put your foot on something that gives you a minor stretch, not a huge stretch, but something that will be challenging. And from here, we're going to either balance, or you can hold on to something, it doesn't matter too much. Focusing quite a lot to stabilize the foot that you're on, so squeezing the toes in and then bracing the core so you don't end up with your body all the way to the side, but you're trying to keep yourself upright so your abs are gonna kick in at some point while you're bringing the leg up. And then we are going to go for isometrics. With the isometrics and the reps, you can also go a bit more brutal, and you can add ankle weights if you want to get further with this exercise. If you already find it relatively easy, this is the next step up. If you're not sure where to start, I always recommend that everyone get a full joint assessment and functional movement screen, because without that, you're not going to know what you most need to work on and what your restrictions are that are actually stopping you from getting to where you want to be. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found that useful. This video was specifically covering hip abduction and rotation, and there's going to be another 3 videos in this 4-part series on hip mobility. In part 2, we're going to be covering hip flexion and extension. In part 3, we are going to be covering hip hinging and hamstring variations, and in part 4, we are going to go over some beginners variations. If you found this video handy, please subscribe. It really makes a big difference. Think of anteriorly pelving your tilt.